on our webinar. So this is being recorded, so you can reference it again later. We have 18 people joining online, so a lot of people listening in, and we are going to talk about RFP 2X, which is for Brooklyn Public Library, where we are today. So joining me in the room is Derek. Derek's going to go over a bunch of different things on bid requirements and other helpful things to make this a successful procurement for one of you. And we also have Gozer on the line, and they're going to talk about the different federal requirements that go along with this solicitation. But before we do that, here's our broad agenda. So we'll do quick introductions and come on in. Are you here for the pre-bid meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Besides the federal requirements, we'll go over the bid requirements. We'll talk about project deliverables and our concept designs that we've developed. So the Solar Power and Battery Backup Program for community facilities is a partnership that was developed with the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. These particular projects that are included in the solicitation are a partnership that also includes DCAS. So the New York City Department of City Administrative Services is funding the solar portion of this project. Gozer is funding the energy storage portion of this project. These are CDBGDR funds that are governing how the solicitation works. So the battery backup systems can only be used for backup. So these are systems that are going to be used during power outages and nothing else. And we've been working with Brooklyn Public Library for quite a few years now with quite a few different people, and we're very thankful for this partnership and be able to use the space and work with them. So with that, we're gonna kick it over to Gozer. So you guys can just unmute yourself and go whenever you're ready. I don't know which order you're in, but we should be able to hear you over here.
Hi, thank you. This is Achilles from Gozer's Wage Compliance Unit. I'm just going to go over the prevailing wage requirements on the project. Just so everyone is aware what prevailing wage actually means, it means that all your on-site construction workers must be paid at minimum the prevailing wage rate associated with the trade that they're performing on site. Okay, there was some confusion about that in other pre-bids. So, you know, it's directly related to workers working in the field on site. Okay, for this project, it's going to be subject to both federal and state prevailing wages. So basically what the expectation is, all contractors who are trying to determine what rate is appropriate for the specific classification on site will need to check both the federal and the state schedule. So the federal schedule is within the bid, okay? The state schedule is online on the New York State Department of Labor's website. So essentially, you know, if you're trying to determine what an electrician should be paid, you look at the electrician in the federal schedule, you look at the one in the state, whichever is higher, that's the one you pay. At Gozer, we have a very hands-on team, so we're here to support you and any subs you may have on the project with all this compliance stuff. So including you know, determining what rate and trade is appropriate in the field. So, you know, if you're not sure what rate to pay, you know, you can reach out and you know, we'll give you the rate that's appropriate. If you're not sure what trade applies to a particular individual working in the field, you know, we can help you out with that as well. Another thing that's unique about this project is your certified payrolls. They will be submitted online digitally through our online management website that we use. It's called the Elation system. It's pretty simple. Essentially, you know, you would register for the system and you would submit your payrolls digitally. They look exactly like the paper payrolls. You know, it's just an online version of it. It's kind of cool in the because you can see that your payrolls are being submitted. You can see that your subcontractors are submitting payrolls. You can see whether your payrolls are being approved or rejected. If they're being rejected, you know, the reason behind the rejection. And again, you know, like I said, we have a very hands-on team. So usually how we like to proceed with that part of it is, you know, as soon as the contract is awarded and work has begun on site, you know, we will walk you through, we'll do one-on-one walkthroughs to show you how to use Elations, to show you how to submit certified payroll reports. We'll do the same thing with your subcontractors as well. And then from there, any questions, problems, rejections, corrections, anything along the way, that's a problem, you could reach out and we can troubleshoot anything you need. Additionally, you know, obviously make sure you're trickling down all these provisions into your subcontracts. Okay. Apprentices can also be utilized on the project. All right. They can be paid less than a journeyman's wage, but they're going to have to be in a DOL approved apprenticeship program. So there's certain apprenticeship certificates that we would be requesting should you bring any apprentices on site. Lastly, if you guys are looking through that federal wage schedule, the one in the bid, and you notice that you know, a trade that you need is not on there, you know, you can reach out. We can add trades to the wage schedule. We can do this at any time throughout the project. The process typically takes about 30 days, though. So, you know, as soon as you notice something, you know, just let me know, and we'll get it done. That's the basic prevailing wage requirements on the job. Any questions for me?
Is there a cost to register for the online portal?
I'm sorry, I couldn't really hear you. What was that? What was that?
Is there a cost to register for Elation?
No, it's free. I mean, you know, typically there is a cost, but we have, it's not going to cost you anything. We have it all taken care of already.
Any other questions in the room? Any questions online?
You know, and during the pre-construction meeting, you know, we'll get a little more into the details, but that's the basic stuff. So, all right, if there's no more questions from me, I'm going to pass it over to Cassie from our office, who's going to go over the MWB and Section 3 requirements.
Thanks, Achilles. Hi, everyone. So like Achilles mentioned, my name is Cassie Ward, and I'm the Director of Monitoring Compliance. I'm just going to very briefly review with you the diversity requirements that will be associated with this project. Like Achilles mentioned, this will be pretty high level, and then as we progress with the project and once the bid selection has been made, and certainly once the contract is awarded, we will be very hands-on, helping you with getting to know the Elation system, which is for these requirements as well, where your reports will be submitted. You know, we'll help you with determination of what documentation you need to do for the files, and we'll just pretty much be available to help you with all of your needs related to these requirements. So what are the requirements? On the federal side of things, there is Section 3 regulation, and Section 3 is a federal law which addresses the provision of opportunities to low to moderate income businesses and individuals. So Section 3 applies to HUD-funded programs where recipients receive an award in excess of $200,000, so that will be on the subrecipient level, and then when the subrecipient is contracting, it applies to contracts of $100,000 or more. And when those triggers are met, the goals are 30% for all new employees hired, and then 10% of the total dollar amount of the contract for essentially construction-related endeavors, and then 3% for non-construction activities. Any questions on Section 3 before I move forward on its, any questions on its applicability? Okay, so then the other goals that we have set forth are related to the state minority and women-owned businesses provisions, and that applies to contracts of $25,000 or more for labor, services, equipment, et cetera, and $100,000 more or more for real property renovations and construction contracts. So, like I said, the goals for this are 15-15 for minority and women-owned businesses, and there are the subcontracting goals and new hire goals associated with Section 3. For both of these areas, we understand that sometimes if you are doing work that's of a very specific nature, it can be difficult to find firms who are Section 3 or MWBE to fulfill those requirements. What we really emphasize here is that you're making efforts to do so. So efforts include emailing, going to events, contacting us here at GOSER, where we can give you the names of businesses that we've met over the course of the last several years when we go out and make contact with people and businesses. And essentially, all of that outreach, those phone calls, those emails, those events should be going into a log so that if you are unable to meet your goals, we have documentation of why. Again, we do stress that you make those attempts to meet the goals, but we understand that sometimes it's not feasible, and in those instances, we just ask that it's documented. Now, as we move forward with this project, there'll be more opportunities to have the more in-depth conversations about this. So the way that we track activities and utilizations is, like I said, also through relations, and there are several reports that need to be submitted related to both Section 3 and MWBE, and also with EEO. So I think that about covers it. Like I said, as we move forward and once contracts are being entered into and there are specific plans that we're provided with, we'll look at those plans and provide feedback. So, you know, it becomes more concrete as we move along with the process.
Any questions?
Any questions?
I think we're good. Thank you, Cassie. Thank you, Achilles.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so I know that was a lot, but Derek is going to talk about some of the bid requirements, and in them are templates to do your Section 3 plan and MWBE plan. So it makes it a lot easier to do. And the key thing to note in that is that you need to make a good faith effort to try to achieve these goals. So we know it's really hard to find women in the industry. There's just 2 of us in the room right now. It's also hard to find minorities in the business. So there are specific goals, but, and the purpose of this is to try to get you to engage with as many of them as you can, but not to compromise the integrity of the work. So besides that, Elation Systems is the reporting platform. It's your standard internet-based reporting system. It's really easy to use. It looks like it was developed in the 90s, but it's still really functional, and we help with all reporting. So that's not too bad. The other federal requirement I want to highlight are bonds. These projects are bonded and they require bid, performance, and payment bonds. Derek will talk more about the bid bonds, but once a contract is signed, it won't be executed until we have a payment and performance bond for 100% of the contract. And that's because this is a federally funded contract. There's no way of getting around that. So I know that's a problem for some smaller companies, but if you partner, I think there's more likelihood that you can get bonds. There's also very strict insurance requirements for these projects, and those are all noted in the attachments. So if you're not able to have that level of insurance, it would be very hard to win one of these projects. So Derek is going to talk you through the different components of the bid in a section in a second, but before that, in general, we're looking for, again, systems that are providing backup power. We try to make the process for bidding as seamless as possible, so there's going to be as little narrative crafting on your own. Everything is in a template, and we hope that it's easy, and we're here to support when we can. Derek, can you speak from over here so it gets recorded?
Everyone. So as we're probably all aware, responding to an RFP can be onerous, but as Angelica mentioned, we've really tried to streamline the whole process so that it's as simple as possible. And to do that, we have provided a submission checklist, which you'll find on the final page of the RFP. And on that, you'll see everything that you're going to need to provide. And everything on there is in template format where you're just filling in fields with one exception, which is the actual system design drawing. So again, you know, there's a lot to do, but we're really trying to help you make it as easy as possible. So there are 3 basic steps in assessing potential bidders here. So first, we want to confirm your qualifications, that you are a qualified firm that we can consider. And then if you meet those requirements, we move on to review your actual design proposal. And then finally, assuming that that design meets basic requirements, we then can consider your bid. So taking those one by one, first we have the qualifications. And here we have the qualifications form, which is a huge simplification versus our previous RFPs, which is now open, where anybody can bid on the project without being pre-qualified, but you must fill out our own qualifications forms here. So this covers all the basics you need for your designs to be reviewed. You have to demonstrate your relevant experience, technical competence, and include 3 relevant project examples. You can bid either independently as a single vendor or partner with other firms with complementary skills and experience. So if you're a solar installer, maybe you want to partner with a storage vendor. Regardless, each partner in a bid has to submit a complete qualifications form covering everything relevant to their business. Let's see what's next. Next we have the, what's it called? This is still the qualifications form.
Got a quick question before we move on.
Yeah.
You say 3 relevant projects.
Yeah.
Is that for each? Is it only for the prime, or is it for all the different partners as well?
So if a partner is, so there's no real prime when we're looking at qualifications. If somebody has energy storage experience, they should submit examples relevant to energy storage. If they have solar experience, they should submit qualifications, examples relevant to solar. Does that make sense? So if you are partnering with somebody and you only have experience in solar, you would only submit solar examples.
Okay. And so to be qualified, the team needs to present 3 projects or some combination of projects that demonstrate experience with all the relevant technologies.
But it doesn't necessarily need to be each member of the team have 3, as long as the whole team shows 3 of solar.
Correct.
Okay.
And let's save the rest of the questions for the end so we can let the people online join too.
And then after we review your qualifications, we also look, there's a vendor responsibility questionnaire. So this is a state requirement for demonstrating your financial competence to be selected in the RFP. You have to complete it, certify it, and file it with the Office of the State Comptroller, which is all doable online with the VendRep system. This also confirms you aren't involved in any legal troubles that could prove an issue. Just before this, there's also an Iran Divestment Act statement that you have to sign off on. That's pretty standard if you've worked on state projects before. If you have any questions, we can address that later. And then finally, there's the BPL Contractor Safety Pre-Qualification Form. This is something BPL requires to make sure that any vendors that they're working with are OSHA compliant, have an excellent safety record, and the rest. So assuming that you check all those boxes for qualifications, we can then proceed to consider your design. So this covers the proposed system design and all relevant supporting materials. There's a fair bit here, but as we are stressing, it's all easily fillable templates. So again, hopefully pretty seamless. First, we have an energy storage emergency management plan. So in here, we ask you to thoroughly describe any monitoring controls and plans for emergencies such as thermal runaway, loss of monitoring connection, things like that, and what you would do in those situations. Next, we have the decommissioning plan, in which we ask you to lay out how you would be decommissioning in 2 separate scenarios. One, at the end of sort of normal healthy life of the system, standard decommissioning, and also decommissioning after some kind of emergency. and how you would handle each of those situations in detail, including who would be responsible for doing the decommissioning, what role would the bidder play, if any, sort of there could be, et cetera. We also have the MWBE and Section 3 utilization plans as covered by GOZER. And here you're just asked to explain how you will achieve the MWBE and Section 3 goals, which they described before. We also ask for equipment data sheets and warranties for everything that you propose in your system design. So we ask for all technical specifications you can provide, plus information on UL listings, which we're all aware is really important, especially here in the city. We ask for 1741, 1973, and 9540 to meet FDNY requirements. And then for warranties, we ask for all information you can provide on both manufacturer and workmanship warranties, plus any information you can give on optional extensions for warranties if the sites choose to go forward with that. Now for the actual system designs. So for each project, we ask you to fill in the system design form, which you see here, detailing all proposed hardware, mechanical and electrical integration methods, and so on. This must include a drawing of the proposed solar and storage system. That's the one hands-on part that isn't in a template, with locations of all important system components clearly indicated. Finally, if your design appears compliant, then we can move on to consider the bid. So there's a lump sum bid form that has to be filled out for each site. And you have to be certain that the values in that match the site's bid bond and schedule of values, the two other portions of the bid. Each lump sum bid form submission includes a non-collusive procurement, lobbying, bidding certification confirming you didn't, collude, lobby, or anything bad like that. In the schedule of values, we ask you to provide an itemized budget for each proposed system design. Importantly, we ask you to separate solar and storage costs and items. Be sure that you don't refer to any other cells within. Each of these fields has to get a dollar value or we can't consider your bid. So even if it's $0, you've got to fill in every cell. Can't be any TBD. There can't be any look at the cell above or on the next page. Make sure you have a dollar value in each line there. And one other important detail is we require a bid guarantee for 5% of the bid price for each library. There will be 4 contracts, one with each of the sites. So there must be 4 bid bonds, one for each of those. And then finally, assuming that you've checked off all these boxes and we could consider your bid, you'll be one of the bidders that we open on March 11th at the SolarOne office. And that'll be done publicly, and the vendor with the lowest compliant bid will be awarded the contract. So the final project deliverable, of course, the exciting part, are the solar and storage systems. And here you can see we're looking at our Coney Island library system. To just quickly review the basics here, we're asking for, of course, a grid-connected solar PV system. This will function independently of the ESS, producing solar power to reduce the site's utility bills during normal operations. In the event of a blackout, it'll island from the grid and charge the ESS automatically as required for the duration of the outage, with the ESS providing just backup power. It will not be used for anything else the rest of the time. The vendor will need to achieve final project sign-off from all relevant authorities having jurisdiction to get these projects done. And the energy storage system here, as I said, will only provide power during outages, with one exception, which is whatever cycling is necessary for the health of the battery during normal operations, of course, is permissible. Besides that, the idea is that these are really for providing emergency power during disaster recovery. So we want to make sure that the battery is as topped up as possible. A fully integrated monitoring system is vital and will confirm that it's operating safely. And for some context here, so 2 of our sites of the 4, Coney Island and Garrettson Beach, are at significant flood risk. So we've designed smaller batteries that'll just be providing power to exterior outlets. The idea being that if the building itself isn't accessible, the community can still gather there, charge their phones, we can power lights and other essentials. So that's why we have, you can see a 15.3 kilowatt hour concept design for this site. That also makes sure that we're under that FDNY 20 kilowatt hour designation, so that these are considered small systems to make them a little easier to get through the permitting process. That's just a view from the street. We have a cool canopy. Don't go through the rest, okay. And just a quick note, so the two sites that have the smaller systems are Coney Island and Garrison Beach, because those are just providing power to plug loads on the exterior of the building. The other two are not at the same risk of flood, so we have recommended designs that would power on-site loads, including lights, things like that. Those are larger systems. Yeah, we'll get into more details in the RFP. And pass it on to Angelica.
Was there any handouts that were given?
You can take a copy of the RFP.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we want to leave a lot of time for questions, but before we get to that, just to talk about the concept designs a little bit. We've been meeting with the FDNY for quite a few years now to properly site these systems. So like Derek was saying, the site is in a flood zone, so it was really important to site the battery on the rooftop of this building. The building and the roof is non-combustible, so the most FDNY is asking for is a 10-foot perimeter around it of non-combustible material. We are siting the storage system. It's a little hard to see here, but towards the top of the screen, there's one small energy storage cabinet. It's smaller than the HVAC equipment, so it's set back pretty far. It's not near any openings or anything else. We've used Simplify for our concept design, given their recent testing data that shows that they're unlikely to go into thermal runaway. So it's really important. We've been meeting with the FDNY on our other projects that we have permitted, and they're, even though these are systems that are backup power only, they are requesting 9540A data. And if you're proposing a system that is not going to be going through 9540A, it's very unlikely that we'd be able to choose your system. So the other thing to note here is that this is a solar canopy. We need to maximize the amount of space that's on the rooftop for all of these sites. That's one of the city's goals. And we also want to provide as much power to the battery during a blackout. So a part of what we did as well is submitted preliminary designs to the Public Design Commission. Since these are city buildings, they will need to go through an additional review and need to be minimally visible. Since these are canopies, they are a little bit more than minimally visible, as you can see here. But this was acceptable to PDC. So our designs, as long as you follow the basic setbacks and everything else, should be compliant with what all city agencies are looking for. Garrison Beach is also in a flood zone. It's right at a canal. We're doing another canopy here, pretty small. This is an interesting roof. This is a better view of it, beautiful building. So you can see on the right side of the screen, one small energy storage cabinet that will be powering exterior plug loads that are in the courtyard of where people can gather in the courtyard of the building. Again, same type of chemistry, same type of construction on the building. So we are looking good at getting permitting here. And again, this is very visible. This on the sides of this building, you have two community gardens. You have a canal, so there's lots of visibility, but PDC was fine with this. For the Mill Basin site, Kings Highway site, you're pretty far inland, but they still have a pretty high risk of power loss and not as much of a risk for flooding. So we will be powering the whole building. This is a complicated roof. There's lots of big HVAC equipment, but there's still lots of space to work around. So the solar canopy here is on the smaller side, but it's necessary because of a shading from a larger building to the south. And then we have the energy storage system sited in the back corner, again, using the Simplify solution. I think it's maybe 3 or 4 access cabinets, but all of this is in our attachments in our of the RFP. This is the PDC visibility view. Last site is Mill Basin, closer to the waterfront, but still not likely to get flooded, so we are powering the whole building. This is one where there are 2 sections to the roof. So there's a bulkhead that separates the 2 sections. Solar is going to go on the front side of the building, storage on the back side of the building, which you can see better here. There's HVAC units inside of a fence. So we are proposing putting storage inside of the same fenced area, maybe pushing it out a little bit more, and it still complies with all of the other FDNY setback rules. And that's it for the bulk of our presentation. We wanted to leave a lot of time for all of the questions that you have. I know we've talked a lot about these projects, but we want to answer questions to help you guys craft your designs. So if there are questions online, let's start with you first. You can just unmute yourself and ask your question. And it looks like there are not. So any questions from the room? Sure. Oh, and introduce yourself before you ask your question.
Mike Brisick from Sunkeeper Solar.
Thanks.
2 questions on the energy storage side. I noticed that all the concept designs call for fire department connection for water-based fire suppression. If required by the fire department, how should that be handled for bidding, given that there's some uncertainty as to whether that will be required or not?
So that's interesting because depending on the chemistry and what the results have for the system have been, they will require it or not require it. So hopefully you're working with a system where you have more insight and which if the fire department would require it.
So respondents, based on their prior experience, should either assume that it will or will not be
Yes.
required and either include it or not include it.
Yeah.
And then my other question was, Simplify's product hasn't undergone 9548 to the full system level of testing. Have your conversations with FDNY indicated that they'll accept their module and rack level tests showing no propagation as an acceptable level of 9548 data?
I don't know. No. The FDNY hasn't said anything for sure because they won't say anything until you submit an application to them.
Okay.
But
and insofar as respondents are responsible for all approvals, respondents are basically taking the risk if they were to use that product.
yeah, and the idea is that we're presenting a concept design that we think can get built. You can propose whatever you want.
Sure.
If you're working with another vendor that has made more progress in 9548 and you think they're more likely to get built.
That's why.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a meeting with FDNY on Wednesday and they're saying it's a problem and they're trying to do something to fix that, but it's not going to be a near-term solution.
But they haven't said anything positively or negatively about whether Simplify's 9548 results will be adequate for sign-off.
Not to me.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Maybe let's go agree to sustainable solutions. If you have an alternative to lithium ion, is that something the FDNY is willing to take?
So that there are a few things to that.
Water
If there's an alternative to lithium ion, will the FDNY take a look at it? So we're going to be taking the first look at it
Okay.
to make sure it meets our critical load requirements. And sure, we'll look at anything. Our goal with this project is to install systems that are going to last a really long time. So we don't like lead acid. We don't like systems that are going to degenerate quickly over time. We are looking for things that can be around for the next disaster in 2050, not the next disaster in 2025.
So is FDNY going to be part of the selection process? So are you going to award and then have FDNY say this chemistry doesn't work?
No. So we at Solar One do all of the vetting. What you have to do is meet our minimum design requirements, and we will determine if you meet the minimum design requirements. And sorry, what is your name?
Oh, sorry, Zach from Bill Edison.
Okay, thank you. Damon?
once you meet the requirements you set forth for MWB and Section 3 demonstrating that,
Yeah.
the way that you're going to be scoring this is, if we hire more Section 3 residents, does that give us a bonus, or is a locked in yes, no?
Yes, no.
My name is David Barr, 771 Chicago WVE. Just asking if batteries are slightly bigger than what's prescribed, but still under the 20 kilowatt threshold, whether that would be acceptable.
Yes.
And do the panels, in fact, in the RFP, obviously the RFP was done a long time ago, but is microinverters something that was encouraged in the design? I noticed that there was mentioning Enphase, which is a very particular inverter, especially for commercially installed, rarely selected for commercial.
You can propose whatever equipment you like. We really like Enphase microinverters, especially in New York City. We know that might not work best given your configuration of solar modules and energy storage systems. So whatever works for you, you're welcome to propose. Again.
Okay, also, I noticed that there were boxes for various, safety plans and
Yep.
emergency, things like that. If those boxes aren't sufficiently spaced for our answer, would you encourage us to just work within the box or supply our own? I know that you mentioned that our design is a separate item, but not necessarily for the other.
If you want to add more to any of the emergency response plans or decommissioning plans, you're welcome to add additional pages.
Okay.
Just make sure you answer all the questions. So these particular plans were designed specifically around FD&Y requirements. These are things they look for in the permitting process, and that's why we're asking for them, to make sure that you're thinking about the things that are needed in order to get systems built.
You said that, I think you said that after the projects were awarded, you would then require respondents to get a 100% payment performance bond.
Mm-hmm.
How are respondents demonstrating their ability to get a 100% PMP bond in the qualification phase?
A letter.
Maybe I just missed this, but are you going to do one award or is each project its own award?
We are likely going to do one award, but we reserve the discretion to award different ones. So even though it's for Brooklyn Public Library, there will be 4 separate contracts, and therefore 4 separate bonds for each one. Saw a question back. No?
Well, if you have a particular design, very unique, how do you partner with the installer? How does that work? Do you want to have everything under one roof in terms of design and installation and everything? How does that work?
Totally up to you. You are welcome to partner. You're welcome to work on your own. You just have to be able to meet the qualifications if you're working on your own. Yeah, we're not here to limit who you engage with. We're here to just make sure the resilience requirements are met for each site.
Partnership really just means that we could be subcontracting a part of the work.
Yep.
And everybody that we could be subcontracting with has to also be stated in the RFP. For example, the electrician who's doing the hookup, maybe, as opposed to just the solar installer or the prime WVE GC.
We're mainly looking at solar and storage experience, so you don't need to state that in the RFP, but you will need to record that as a part of reporting requirements if you are awarded the contract. Yeah. And I'll just go back to that because this is the newest part of this RFP. So this is a reissued RFP. Since we are opening it to all industry, we needed to make sure we capture all of the relevant information to make sure you guys can actually deploy these systems. So this is pretty standard. We're not looking for anything specific to your experience here, but if you want to, this is where you would add any subcontractors or any other firms that you work with in the form on the right. So if you work with a MWBE for permitting or expediting, if you work with somebody different for commissioning, things like that is helpful for us to look at, but what we're really looking for here is your solar energy construction experience and energy storage construction experience.
I saw that the project or projects will be awarded to the lowest qualified bidder. If the project is awarded and then for whatever reason that bidder is not able to make it through to the contracting phase, will the projects be re-awarded or to like the next lowest bidder, or what's the contingency there?
Maybe we can elaborate a little bit more. Why wouldn't the project make it through the contracting phase?
For whatever reason, the awarded contractor wasn't able in the end to get the 100% P&P bond, or something else fell through in between award and contracting.
Steve, can you answer that question? I don't actually know.
Okay.
Let's just give Steve a second to, or Stacy. I can also get you an answer to that. So part of this procurement is issuing a bunch of Q&A, and all of the questions that were asked here will be issued written responses. We'll be issuing those in about 2 weeks. There are site walks that are available if you want to go to the different library sites to check out the electrical service, check out the rooftops. You're welcome to do that. Just schedule with us at your discretion whenever your schedules allow it. And if you haven't already read it, I really encourage you to read the RFP. There's a lot of information there. We've done 3D models of all of the buildings with their concept designs. Those are on our website. So those are a good reference point. And yeah, I guess Steve is not answering now, but any other questions?
Can we get a copy of this?
It's in the RFP, which is online. So we're trying to reduce paper. The
Right.
attachments are like over 200 pages long. Everybody was given a copy of online. Yep.
I noticed in the RFP, like there's some details about violations. Would the RFP want us to assess those violations if they have any kind of bearing on past inspections?
We've checked all the violations. They do not have any effect on pulling permits.
So they're just there for us to know about
Yes.
them, but they're not going to in any way interfere with inspections.
Absolutely. Yeah, we checked that with COB a few months ago.
Okay, and I also had a question about the fire suppression, just to go back to that topic. Should the price be reflective of including fire suppression and everything, or should it just be like an add alternative?
No ad alternates. It should be included in, we'll show you right here. So there is fire detection and suppression. If your system will require that, or like if your system doesn't come with built-in fire alarms or not even suppression, that should be included here. But you should be really well informed on how your technology works and how it's going to go with the FDNY before filling this out. Because there is no, there's no way to add in at all. This is the form you're filling out.
So we just assume there's some kind of water suppression system or system.
You should only assume that if you think that your system the system you're proposing will require that.
Okay. So it's not necessary unless the technology would
Yeah.
require it. Okay.
Exactly. Any other questions? Yep.
My question is, are there existing lines available for each building? Electrically?
No. So what we've done so far is 30% pre-design work. So we haven't done any final electrical designs. We've done a rooftop assessment. We've done a basic assessment of the electrical system at all of the buildings. In most cases, we're able to integrate into the existing equipment that's there. We've made sure that it is up to current electrical code, but we haven't done any electrical drawings. Our drawings are reflective of the basic solar components and the basic storage components.
So is the end product to be, say, a CAD drawing with the systems?
The end product for this project?
Yeah.
No, the end product for these projects are the solar energy systems and the battery backup systems. So it's the actual system, fully designed, permitted, signed off, commissioned, installed, functioning on these buildings. It's for much more than just design.
Okay, so where we do have to integrate to the building electrical system, there are some type of drawings available, or is it all a site observation?
There are no electrical drawings available. There are photos of the existing electrical situation at each site.
When you mentioned OSHA, to what level is that? How does that relate to a partnership?
Yeah, each partner that's filling out the qualification form should fill out the OSHA form as well.
Okay, but to a level 10, or I may have missed that.
Richard, do you know? This is something that we'd have to check with Brooklyn Public Library because this is their requirement, not ours. But I can get back to you on that.
Okay. So the two simpler systems, it says 20 each. Right? The other two do integrate into the electrical system, right? They're taking up the whole ground floor for DR. And the term emergency has been thrown around. It's really backup, right? The existing life safety that's there, that's going to remain and satisfy the code articles.
Yeah, so the primary purpose for these systems is to power lights and plug loads during a power outage. Nothing more than that. Not for shelter. These are libraries. They're only open during the day in communities that are going to need them.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, and I think the if this system is going to back the ground floor of a library and life safety, the emergency exit lighting, etc.
Yeah.
And if it's on battery, which I guess it is, that battery is going to satisfy the life safety requirement in the code.
Yeah.
It's probably been inspected, it's up to snuff.
Brooklyn Public Library is one of the greatest partners to work with. They have a large staff that is always at all of the buildings, making sure their buildings are up to code, the existing violations that are there for weird things many, many years ago. So yes.
And the standalone systems, they don't get tied in any way, shape, or form to the building electrical system. It's purely standalone.
There are no standalone systems. Can you clarify what you mean?
Well, this is, it seems to be backing a DR area in front, and on normal power failure, the PV, the batteries take over, and that's it. They're not recharged from the building, are they?
No.
Okay. Whereas the other two buildings, since they get tied to the building, that's potentially a window for trickle charging, etc.
Potentially, yes.
I guess the other one was any of the assessments, such as the roof, are they available?
All of that documentation is available online.
Okay, like the loading.
We've done a preliminary structural analysis, and that has the loading on the roof.
Okay. And I guess the hardest one is there any opportunity to go to buildings today?
No.
Okay, that was the hard one. Okay. So what's the lead time you need to visit?
At least a day or two.
Okay.
Either myself, Richard over here, or Derek will be able to walk you through the sites. That we can't do that today.
Sorry,
No, it's okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you all for coming. And